Yeah, very happy to be here. I'm the lead writer for GamesBeat at VentureBeat. We have our own conferences that we run as well, the GamesBeat conferences. Our next one is October 5th and 6th in San Francisco. And one of the speakers we just booked was Nick Earl, who's the CEO of Glue. So Chris's boss. And I've also known Chris for...
Tell him good things about me.
Yeah. So I've known Chris for quite a long time too. He's spoken at our events as well. He's very fluent in mobile games and monetization. He's a chief revenue officer at Glue. And mobile gaming is now $11.9 billion per quarter. And we're going to talk about the best monetization practices and trends and predictions for things like user acquisition and advertising and live operations in mobile games. And I'm going to have Chris introduce himself a little further as well.
Sure. So I'm Chris Akhavan, CRO at Glue. I oversee the company's commercial operations, which range from user acquisition to marketing to ad revenue, BD, and partnerships. I've been with Glue since 2013, so over 4 years now. It's been a great run. We actually just 20 minutes ago, hot off the press, literally announced our Q2 earnings, which we can talk about if you'd like. So I'll hit on the highlights. We reported $82.5 million in total bookings for Q2, which was a beat to our guidance by 14%. Our Q2 revenue this year is up 60% versus our Q2 revenue last year. We had 5 million DAU on average across the quarter. And the quarter was driven by multiple of what we call our growth and evergreen titles, including Design Home, Tap Sports Baseball, Covet Fashion, and a number of others.
So it's sort of like a narrower slate than you guys have had in years past. Right? That's one of the big points here. Right?
Yeah, that's actually been, I'd say, a very big multi-year transformation and evolution for the company. Back when I joined Glue in 2013, believe it or not, we used to launch like 17, 20 games a year. It was like a very different business model that was built around constantly cranking out new titles, and a lot of them would be sequels where you kind of do a +1 is what we used to refer to it as. And the entire industry has changed, and with that, we've as a business have also had to change. And so, if you look at the business now, it's all about focusing on our core suite of live titles and running live ops on them, and keeping games going for multiple years, which has been a much more successful strategy for us. And then if you look at the top grossing charts, it's what the whole entire industry's moved to, right? Which is games that get operated for years instead of months, and players that stick around and continue to engage in those titles.
And you guys acquired Cloudstar and picked up the Design Home there. Tell us more about that particular title. It seems to be doing very well.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Our biggest game right now is an interior design game. Who would have ever thought that would be our biggest game? Our third biggest game actually in the quarter was Covet Fashion, a fashion game. We've actually been talking to Cloudstar for quite a while. We've thought they have always had a very compelling business, and that they built games that were truly platforms, not just games. And so we've actually wanted to acquire them going back a long time, just on the basis of Covet Fashion being a very powerful product. And if you haven't played Covet Fashion, you kind of design avatars based around different design challenges. It could be things like design a look for the red carpet, for example. And it's all powered by real high-end fashion brands. And so what got us really excited about moving forward with the acquisition is that they were about to put out their second title called Design Home, which is similar in concept to Covet, but with Design Home, what you're doing is creating interior designs based around different rooms for different design challenges. And similar to Covet, it's powered by real high-end furniture brands that bring a lot of authenticity to the experience. And also similar to Covet, it's something that we think is going to be a multi-year growing title that's a true platform and has a lot of opportunities to expand from where it is today. I think it did about $22.5 million in revenue in Q2, and by far our biggest title.
And the way you're monetizing that, can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, and in Design Home, the monetization is really built around monetizing furniture and other accessories to decorate the different rooms that are part of the challenges. So that ranges from bedroom furniture to living room furniture. We even have children's rooms that rolled out in the game recently. There's now outdoor furniture as well. And so as you're going about the process of designing your room for a particular challenge, you will have some items that you maybe can use for free, but if you want to, use a higher end couch, for example, that really completes your look, we'll monetize off of selling you that couch. And the flow of the game is basically you kind of submit your look for a challenge, and then it goes into the community for voting. And your performance in these challenges is based on how well your design stacks up against other people in the community's design. So it's like a very social loop.
Yeah, very, very interesting way to make money, I guess. So what are your sort of views on just the leading edge of user acquisition? What works in 2017 versus what may have worked a couple of years ago or so?
Yeah, UA's evolved quite a bit. And it's actually part of why I joined Glue back in 2013. I got excited about, my background's always been in performance marketing and digital advertising, and so as I looked at Glue back then, the company really had no expertise around UA. The company was kind of buying on a blind basis, no real infrastructure or playbook to run true performance marketing. And so back then we made a big investment in bringing in the right talent, but also investing in the right infrastructure to power world-class UA. So the leading edge of that for us is a platform that we internally call GUTS, which stands for the Glue User Tracking System. Not the greatest name, but it works. And so GUTS fundamentally is about giving our UA managers access to very granular campaign performance data that allows very quick decisioning around optimizing for ROI. And so as I look at the future of UA and the leading edge for us, the next layer that we've really been investing in going back to last year has been adding in an automation component. Because a lot of these real-time decisions, currently require manual decisioning and actioning by a UA manager. Over time, we'd like to automate as many of them as possible, so the UA managers are focused on the very important high-level strategy behind a campaign, but the kind of more granular, turn this line item off, turn that one up, change the bid, like that is a layer that we think there's a tremendous opportunity to automate.
Ad Colony had this report yesterday, and they said that for every 50 employees in a company, there were maybe 1 to 3 user acquisition people. Does that sound right to you, or you guys have?
Yeah, that varies quite a bit. I mean, our UA team is, I'd say, pretty lean for considering that we run UA, I think, right now on 8 different titles, and our UA team is, I think, about 10 people across all those titles. So I'd say we run pretty lean compared to some of our peers.
Okay. And then, so Tencent's one of your investors, and you guys have been learning from them as well, right?
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, I think this was back in 2015, Tencent made a strategic investment into Glue, which has worked out really well for us. They've been tremendous partners and have helped really guide our evolution as a company. And in fact, last year, at the end of last year, we sent about 35 of our key talent out to Shenzhen, Tencent's headquarters. Including myself, and we spent the whole week learning from a lot of their teams and all kinds of case studies from games that were doing great and they continued to do better to games that had a dip, and they kind of implemented certain live ops strategies to bring them back to life. And so not only did we learn a lot of great tactics and strategies surrounding live ops, it kind of really tripled down the company's focus on live ops and putting a lot of our energy towards keeping our games going for multiple years. Which has been, again, a tremendous transformation for a company that used to just crank out title after title to now be really, really dialed in on focusing on growing our existing games and making sure that we're sharing learnings on live ops across the portfolio.
So what channels do you like when it comes to finding users?
For UA, I mean, no doubt for anybody in this room, Facebook is going to be a huge chunk. It still is probably the most effective channel. What's been exciting for me over the past year, I'd say the big new channels that have started to come online. Pinterest has done really well for us, particularly for female-oriented titles. Apple's sponsored search product is starting to scale up, which has been nice. Let's see, Snapchat has been another channel that's kind of come online in a nice way. And the other one I'd flag is probably playable ads, something that has been kicked around in the industry for a long time, but never really seemed to find its stride, never seemed to find its scale. It came online in a very big way last year. So I think there's a lot of room left for innovating around that new format.
And I guess influencers are also sort of on your list. Those things you get.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm kind of lukewarm on influencers. I think there's been a lot of noise around that whole bucket of marketing, and I think there's definitely a lot of value to be unlocked. But it's not a blanket strategy that just works. And I've seen plenty of, not just ours, but other companies running influencer campaigns that totally bombed. I'd say what doesn't work is just going to an influencer network and having them kind of bundle a bunch of influencers to promote your game. What seems to work better is getting much deeper with a smaller group of influencers that are actually going to really understand the product and really creatively weave it into their content. So it's a category that we're definitely looking at, that we think there's value in, but that we also approach with a lot of caution.
Yeah, it seems like Design Home would have a completely different set of influencers available to you.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you think of two games and like both have, say, good gameplay, good teams built them, they both have sort of initially, sort of before you're testing them, they look like they have equally good prospects. But then one monetizes and one doesn't. Like, what does that make you think, I guess, or what does it bring up for you?
For me, it starts with retention, right? Like, so if a game is able to retain and engage an audience, that's obviously like more important than anything else. If you are able to keep an audience around, like monetization is generally something you can figure out over time. So it's hard to imagine a scenario that you described where you have two games that both have great retention and only one monetizes. That rarely happens. We usually see those two things kind of like be pretty correlated. So the games that don't monetize also for us tend to not retain. And so for me, that's the first thing I always look at is like, does the fundamental core loop and the meta layer around the game actually keep an audience engaged? Not just for day one, but for day 30 and beyond. And then beyond that, like if we did have a situation like that where, two titles are in beta, one's looking great, one has been cranking away, but just can't figure out a viable model to build an LTV, then we tend to, at this point, sunset the title that's not performing and really focus our energy and our efforts on the titles that are, which is, again, the biggest theme for us is like deepening our focus on where we're having success and getting away from the cycle of always cranking out new games.
And points of friction that, say, maybe can be dealt with relatively easily that get in the way of monetization?
For what stage? Like in the live stage or in development? Like, what are you thinking?
Whatever your process is, really, for just like launching a game, getting out there, and then you see.
Yeah, I'd say one point of friction that the way you kind of phrased it made me think of is like, in the past, we had, I'd say, not a very sophisticated process around concepting a game, prototyping it, greenlighting it, seeing it through to development, and ultimately into a beta. You go back to like 5 years ago, Glue would just kind of like see a PowerPoint presentation, say, okay, that looks cool, go make the game, see you in 12 months. Not a very effective strategy at all. So we've learned a lot, and so I think the biggest friction point that we had to deal with is like understanding that you need to be very disciplined throughout that entire development cycle. Going back to the initial prototype, like now we don't just greenlight something off a PowerPoint, which seems kind of obvious, but it actually is something we had to learn over time. We have teams, a very small team, prototype a concept and prototype it in multiple different ways, get internal feedback on that, get actual play testing, get actual users in front of that, make sure that that core gameplay experience is fun before going on to do anything else. Like definitely learned that we need to start with the fun, finding the fun. And then beyond that, we've also gotten good at continuously kind of checking the progress of a title, and again, through internal feedback, external feedback, making sure it's actually on track, because the biggest thing we want to avoid is the scenario where you wait 12 months for a title to go into full development all the way through the cycle with a big team, get into beta, and find out it doesn't work. So anything we can do to understand that much earlier in the process, we definitely benefit from.
What are some external things that affect you, like say these app store updates or other changes like that?
To be honest, like the App Store could change at different UA channels or ad networking. There's always like little fluctuations, but none of them materially impact our business the way just the fundamental product does. So we try not to get too distracted by, like, we obviously are very much dialed into what's happening in the ecosystem, but we don't want to let that ever detract us from really focusing at the core on making great games, because all the rest of that stuff is not going to matter if you don't do that.
And how about, say, licensed IP versus original IP?
Yeah, I'd say we At this point, the company is pretty balanced between licensed IP and original. We actually just announced another license partnership with the WWE, which I'm really excited about. I think it's a tremendous IP to work with because you get a huge character universe that people are deeply emotionally connected to. Even if they don't watch WWE anymore, like there's people that still would be like, oh, cool, Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock or Hulk Hogan or whatever. And the modern guys like the John Cena's. Like you have this great character universe, which for a mobile game is kind of your dream. I mean, you look at the big games like Marvel Contest of Champions or Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, like what fundamentally powers those games is that deep emotional connection you have with those characters. So we do see a lot of value in licenses that offer something like that, and WWE I think is going to be one of those. But even with our original IP titles like Design Home and Covet Fashion, I mentioned that we license real furniture or real high-end fashion brands for those. Racing Rivals licenses actual cars like BMW and Ferrari. Those are all licenses that power the original IP. So while we always have a desire to own our IP permanently long-term and focus on original IP, even in those cases, we do see value in partnering with different licensed IP to power whether it's the authenticity or the emotional connection in a particular game.
And I guess what sort of metrics do you really care about? CRO or your teams? What do you care about?
Probably all the same metrics that people in the room here look at, the high-level KPIs, the retention, the shorter-term metrics around payer conversion and ARPDAU and LTV and CPI, click-through rates and conversion. There's like a lot of them, right? But I think as we're getting more advanced, what's really important is to not look at things in broad buckets, but to really understand the segments of your audience and zero in on each segment and look at them separately. Like, not just your payers, by the way, even your non-payers. Like, segment that audience and look at, the non-payers that engage socially or, interact with their clan in a certain way. And then when we start to look at those audience slices and measure those very closely, you'll start to pick up behaviors that you wouldn't really notice if you're just looking at your entire game's KPIs at a high level.
And what do you want the game designers to know about monetization or being data driven?
I guess for my role, heavily focused on driving ad revenue, which is a big part of our business. We did close to $12.5 million in ad revenue in Q2. The biggest thing for us in working with our game designers is to create that partnership on thinking about ad revenue much earlier in the cycle. And I'll give you an example, like something like rewarded video, for example. If you don't think about that in the early game design, it's hard to add on and tack on later, because rewarded video is a very powerful format, but the per view revenue is very little, right? So you need to have items in your economy that do support kind of small value adds to the user, where it would make sense to have them watch a video to unlock that. And that's something that really does need to come into the early game design.
Yeah, this is Anna from NativeX. I want to ask a question about, like, when you're choosing monetization partners, like what elements that you care the most, like eCPM, fill rate, or other aspects that you care about? So for ad monetization partners, Kelly's somewhere in this room. She runs ad monetization. There she is. You can ask her. She does this all day long. Yeah, but it's all of the above. It's eCPM and fill rate. We always have a limitation on the number of SDKs that we can put in our games. So for any partner to get included in that mix, there needs to be a meaningful revenue opportunity associated with them. So even if they can produce a monster CPM but a tiny fill rate, it's not going to make sense. So it's got to be the combination of those two pieces, for sure. I'm sure Kelly can give you a lot more insight on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So hopefully, can I buy some furniture with cryptocurrency in your games?
Not today, Dean. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for the excellent talk.